In today's video, we have all the latest NHL news and rumors from around the league. Tonight, we're going to be discussing the JT Miller trade to the New York Rangers that was reportedly very close this weekend, but never ended up happening. We have a lot more new information suggesting what the deal may have looked like and what players may have been involved. So we'll discuss there and what could take place. Plus, we have some also updated rumors regarding the Florida Panthers, New Jersey Devils, and the Montreal Canadiens. Plus, we have another NHL veteran in Edmonton on NHL waivers. The best player in the world, Connor McDavid, looked like he's facing a suspension along with Canucks defenseman Tyler Myers. They both have hearings tomorrow. Plus, we have the Montreal Canadiens quarter-century team is announced by the NHL. All that and more coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have lots to discuss here in today's video. Some very interesting news and a big update on the JT Miller trade that was close to happening with the New York Rangers. But first, news from the NHL waiver wire. We have some more activity here today, this time from the Edmonton Oilers, who have placed veteran centerman Derek Ryan on waivers. Now, he's making under $1 million, doesn't have any real term on his contract, so it's possible he could get picked up. He's somebody that's still pretty good on face-offs. I mean, I don't know that it's a complete case of the Oilers, completely losing faith here. They have kind of opted to go with a younger option here in Noah Phillip. He's gotten to play a bit lately, and it seems like that's the move here. In Ryan's case, I mean, there's definitely teams out there looking for bottom six help. Some say he's probably more of a winger now than a centerman, but he's still good on the draw. So, given a short-term contract, not a lot of money, veteran status, hard worker and all that, it is possible. It wouldn't be shocking if Derek Ryan was picked up. So we'll see. I know there was some even talking about the possibility of him landing back in Calgary. They're certainly looking for a player that kind of fits his description. So I wonder if there might be a reunion of sorts there within the province of Alberta. We'll have to see, but we'll find out tomorrow afternoon if Derek Ryan's been picked up by another club or if the Oilers can reassign him. Now, the Oilers and the Canucks game on Saturday night got a little spicy at times, and there was certainly some activity that has led to the Department of NHL Player Safety getting involved with both Connor McDavid and Tyler Myers both having a hearing that'll be taking place tomorrow. They're both phone hearings, so they're not going to be too significant. Neither player has a significant history either, so I suspect we're probably looking at, 1 or 2 games apiece here, most likely at most. But essentially, I know in the McDavid scenario here, he cross-checked Connor Garland to the head, and in Myers' case, he cross-checked Evan Bouchard, and that's what both of these potential suspensions are based on. And McDavid with Garland, to be honest, I think this is kind of an officiating problem to some degree. Obviously, I don't condone McDavid what he did here. I think he's in the wrong, and he'll definitely, obviously pay the price to some extent for that. But at the same time, I thought Connor Garland was all over him and could have been called for multiple penalties in that sequence, and he wasn't. If that happens, that rest of it doesn't happen, right? So, like I said, I kind of wonder, if that's kind of on the officials to some degree. We've seen it in the past. I don't care how good you are, if you're the best player in the world or one of the greatest players, the elite level, eventually you're only going to take so much abuse before you kind of snap here. Like I said, I'm not condoning a cross-check to the head. I'm not shocked, though, that he retaliated in some sort of fashion. And I'm not even convinced that he had absolutely intended to get Garland in the head. You got to remember, Connor Garland is a smaller player, difference in size. Sometimes that matters. Like I said, it doesn't make it right or wrong. Not trying to justify things here for McDavid. I just don't know that we can, absolutely say he was targeting the head. But he definitely intended to cross-check him for sure. And he got him in the head, so he is responsible for his actions. So we'll see. Same goes for Tyler Myers. Of course, Myers is a massive guy. Tyler's bigger than most guys in the NHL at 6'8". So again, I wouldn't be surprised here if both players definitely, I think, will be suspended. Just a matter of how many games. We'll see which one is. Maybe they're even. I'm not really sure. I wouldn't be shocked if they're both 1 or maximum 2 games. We'll find out tomorrow. Now, as I mentioned, we have the announcement today from the NHL regarding the quarter-century team that they've been announcing this time for an Original Six franchise, the Montreal Canadiens, who are actually doing battle with another Original Six team in the New York Rangers tonight. And it was a rather entertaining game. Both teams had a long back and forth matchup here going to overtime with Line getting the overtime winner for Montreal. They continue to be impressive. Jakub Dobush, he let in 4 goals, but at the same time, he still made some massive saves, and he made some huge saves in the OT period. So, the youngster is definitely having himself quite a start to his NHL career, no doubt. But in Montreal's quarter-century teams, that was announced today, Team 1 in the forward group, we had former captain Saku Koivu, longtime Canadian, wasn't there super long, but long enough to make a big impression and big impact, Alexei Kovalev, and of course, a really long-time Canadian, Tomas Plekanec. So those are 3 forwards that definitely stood out, which I have no problem with any of those guys being selected here. On the back end, Shea Weber and Andrei Markov. And of course, between the pipes, we've got Carey Price. So really no real surprise in any of those players there. The second team, current Canadian and longtime member Brendan Gallagher, Max Pacioretty, former captain, Nick Suzuki, current captain, and of course they got Suzuki in the Pacioretty trade, so it's kind of neat in a way that they were connected in that sense. On the back end, you had Sheldon Surrey and PK Subban, along with goaltender Jose Theodore, who had some dominant seasons for Montreal as well. And again, Subban and Weber involved in one of the bigger trades in the NHL over that same time frame as well. So with Subban, Weber, Suzuki, Pacioretty, the connections there with all the moves that were made. It's kind of neat to see both the former star that was traded for the newer player, both having a major impact on the franchise and making these rosters. So certainly lots of great players there. Now, a few quick roster moves and injury updates around the NHL, mostly roster updates here. Montreal did bring up Owen Beck today. He get to play in tonight's game. Of course, against the New York Rangers, he was recalled. I believe that was on emergency status as well. The Canucks sent Brisebois and the Karamaki back to the American Hockey League, as well as the Edmonton Oilers reassigned Josh Brown to the AHL here as well. So they obviously were Ryan on waivers and sent Brown down. That is to make room for Klingberg as well. And like I said, Noah Phillips seems to be getting more of an opportunity lately, which created the situation with Derek Ryan. So those are all your updates regarding all that stuff. Now in the rumor mill, let's before we get into the JT Miller stuff, a few other quick options here. A couple other updates, which both come from Dave Pagnotta, fourthperiod.com. New Jersey, who suffered a loss today to the Ottawa Senators. The Sens didn't have a great start to today's game. They were badly outshot in the first period. I think it was 16-2, if I'm not mistaken. But then after that, they got. All teams that played today were in a back-to-back. But the Devils came out hot. Senators could not get going. Of course, they had travel with their back-to-back as well. Didn't have any legs in the first period. But by the second and third period, they get back to their structure and back to playing more of their style of game, and they really caught up in shots and eventually took a 2-1 victory in this game. The Devils have been slipping as of late. I know the fan base is getting a little bit restless, and there is belief that they're looking to beef up here to some degree ahead of the NHL trade deadline, which, of course, based on today's calendar, is still, more than a month away. But the Devils, according to Pagnotta, their main area that they're focusing on for adding at the deadline is a bottom 6 centerman. So they've had their eye. We know Jake Evans is the main name that has been brought up. Of course, Evans is a center with Montreal. He's having a career season. We don't really know for sure if he's going to be moved here or not. The Canadians, I do believe, are going to have discussions with him around a contract extension. And I think a lot of it's going to depend on how that goes. Clearly, they've got some other prospects coming up and younger players that like Owen Beck, who was recalled today. Kapanen's another one that they want to give more ice time and more opportunity to here. So as much as they like Evans, they don't really want to overpay to keep him when they have these young guys that need the opportunity. So I think a lot's going to depend on how these negotiations go on a new contract. But regardless, even if it's not Evans, that is exactly the kind of player that the New Jersey Devils would like to add here down the stretch. So continue looking for them to make some sort of move in regards to that. The Florida Panthers, another team that we heard updates on from Pagnotta, definitely looking to add on the blue line. And of course, in typical Bill Zito fashion, he's looking for bargain deals because they don't have a ton of salary cap space, and they want to be able to add without really subtracting anything of substance or substantialness here off the roster. they need to be able to do so and get a bargain player coming in that's not going to cost them much of anything. So blue line help is where they're at. The Panthers definitely have not been as strong defensively this year as they would hope and where they were when they were winning the Stanley Cup last year and going to the final the year before. Their blue line definitely was a little bit depleted this year, and it's been noticeable amongst all the top teams. If you look at the Eastern Conference, like the top, say, 6 teams based on the standings, top 3 in each division, they're one of the teams that have given up the most goals. So goals against has definitely been an issue for this team. Being able to defend a little bit better and make sure they have lots of depth at the position as they prepare to finish off strong in their season is going to be imperative. So that's what the Panthers are definitely looking to do with any moves here coming up. Now, the big story of the last couple of days is JT Miller, and is he about to be traded to the New York Rangers? Now, we did talk about this yesterday, but the fact that there was a rumored deal that was close and it never came to be. So we did know yesterday, before the Saturday game, there was a possibility JT Miller was going to be held out of the game last night. And he ended up playing because the deal was at a point where it's considered not imminent, kind of fell through. Obviously, the negotiations weren't able to finalize things. We don't know exactly what the sticking point was, but we do know a little bit more now today about what was being discussed, what players might have been involved, and we can kind of pinpoint probably where the handcuffs have been put on here to kind of slow things down and what could have went wrong. So essentially, we know that JT Miller would have to waive his no-move clause, and it's believed that's not really an issue here. We have reason to believe, based on the reports, that Miller would waive his no-move to return to New York. You know, we can't say that with absolute certainty. I know when reporters have reached out to Miller's agency, they haven't really offered comment, or they may have said at one point that he hasn't been asked yet, and that may have been true at some point, but I think we're at a stage now where he's definitely knows a little bit more about what's going on, and they may not need him to waive just yet because they have to have a deal that they're willing to say yes to, and that, of course, is first and foremost the most important thing. Now, with the New York Rangers, we know that they had a really rough stretch there. They kind of fell out of the playoff spot. They have played better here in their last 10, and they're slowly climbing their way back into the conversation. As of right now, they're not in a wild card spot, but they're, after tonight's overtime loss to the Canadiens, they did pick up a point. They're only a few points out between right now. The Senators and the Blue Jackets have those wild card spots, and then Montreal just passed them as well to be the team right outside. You've got the team like the Rangers and the Bruins kind of hanging around there. So, obviously the New York Rangers are a team that wants to get into playoffs badly. They were not expecting to be where they are this season, and is it possible? It is. It's going to take a lot of extra hard work, but clearly if this trade is going to work out for the Canucks, then maybe they'll want to get the deal done here and move this along. But essentially, there was speculation as well, and some of this was confirmed, that some of the top prospects in the AHL for the Rangers were held out. Players that were scratched by Hartford in the American Hockey League include Bo Gruhl, Adam Sikora, and Yaro Chemlov. So obviously those players are all guys that the Rangers hold fairly high. I know a couple of them especially that could be impact players here, depending on the right scenario. So there's some prospects, obviously, that weren't playing, kind of, led to believe that at least one or two of those guys were in talks. Now, according to the New York Post and Larry Brooks, his new article that was updated overnight last night suggests that a very prominent name in these discussions was former first overall pick and Quebec native Alexis Lafreniere. So, of course, we know a connection to Vancouver with Lafreniere. It's his good friend and former agent, Emily Castonguay, now works with the Canucks as an assistant general manager and has for a little while. So I am sure she is lobbying to get him to Vancouver if at all possible. Now, again, the quote from Larry Brooks here is that he would have been a prominent piece of the discussion. Now, it doesn't mean for sure that the Rangers were willing to include him, and maybe that's why the deal is falling apart, that the Canucks are insisting on it. We don't know for sure if they're willing to put him in. I would think that there'd be some resistance, though, for sure, especially after just trading Capo Caco to Seattle and seeing him kind of take off and having a good run with them. They're probably afraid they're going to see the same thing here with Lafreniere. So there's clearly some, degree of safetiness and caution, if you will, from the Rangers side. But between those prospects being held out, so like I said, it's believed to be involved in some capacity, and then on top of that, you had some speculation that Jones. You had some speculation that JT Miller might not play last night, but he ended up going in, played. Thankfully, it doesn't look like he was injured of any way, which could obviously have a major impact here as well. So that's kind of where the belief is that according to Brooks, a prominent name involved here is Alexis Lafreniere. Now, could it have been that the Canucks were pushing for a one-on-one deal? It's quite possible. That wouldn't be shocking for their part. I don't know that they're going to get that. But I'm sure they were pushing for it for sure. Now, we know other names on the Rangers roster that's definitely in play if the right deal could be found. Would include Ryan Lindgren on the back end. It would include, some other players like Chris Kreider possibly, or even Mika Zibanejad. But Zibanejad, according to Larry Brooks and others, not in this deal here whatsoever with the Canucks. So Mika Zibanejad would not be going the other way. It's believed here that essentially you're looking at probably some kind of combination. If it's not Lafreniere for Miller, could be some combination of Hedl and Jones, along with a prospect or two. So, of course, we know Hedl can play center, has an injury history. We don't know how the Canucks feel about him, but they certainly like Lafreniere, like I said, because of his former agent, big advocate for him. And then, of course, another thing is we did run into some other options here as well with the Rangers. I mean, we know that other names are out there, but we haven't heard as much lately when it comes to Chris Kreider, to some degree Zibanejad, and a few other names that are out there right now. Ryan Lindgren, like I said, but right now there's no deals imminent by the Rangers, and they have been playing better as of late. So could a JT Miller addition be the jolt in the arm that this team kind of needs? I mean, like I said, I don't know that the Canucks were going to be able to get Brendan Schneider out of them, but I know they were certainly willing to try. We also know that they are heavy into Alexis Lafreniere. If they were able to get Lafreniere in a deal, if they were able to come back and say, yes, that's okay, let's proceed, I don't know. That's pretty crazy if you ask me. I don't think you're getting much beyond Lafreniere if he did indeed come to the Canucks in a Miller type of trade. But it could be a pretty crazy one-on-one deal, really, between Miller, and the Vancouver Canucks, and of course Alexis Lafreniere and the New York Rangers. Would the Rangers kind of look at it and be like, okay, well, we're really focusing on winning here the next couple of years. As much as we don't want to do that, we figure Miller makes us better sooner than later. So kind of, there's definitely something to think about with that. But is it worth disrupting potentially your locker room as well? That's another scenario that we have to look at too. So at the end of the day, JT Miller, very well will be moved by the Canucks here in short order. Very likely, he's going to be pushing for a trade here and maybe talking to some other teams. So a couple of things, like I said, that Elliot Friedman mentioned on Saturday Headlines was that there really wasn't anybody being asked to waive anything just yet either. Barry Brooks, like I said, confirmed that Mika Zibanejad was not part of this deal. They really like Braden Schneider. The Rangers have supposedly been very reluctant to give up Schneider. I can't see them getting Schneider and Lafreniere both, especially if they're going to absorb Miller's full salary. To me, that doesn't make any sense at all for the Rangers to proceed that way. I can see maybe giving up one, but not both. And I'm not even sure really that they do that. It's a more likely scenario rather than a guy like Lafreniere being moved, or Schneider might be like a Philip Hedl and a Zach Jones. That might be a more likely scenario as well. That would certainly add to their depth. Maybe they can push to have a prospect at it. It's kind of hard to say. We don't really know exactly how the Rangers brass are going to feel about things and where things were at when they stopped talking and decided that the deal was not ready to proceed, and it was kind of at least a dead deal for at least a period of time. It's going to be very, very, very interesting nonetheless once we get back home and can get back into. So I don't see the Canucks getting both of these players. Like when it comes to Lafreniere and Schneider, they might be able to get one. Like I said, I think there's a possibility that they're going to try to offer Jones or Hedel or combination built around them instead. So as much as the wishful thinking of Lafreniere going to Vancouver for Miller is a nice thought, an interesting thought, would cause a little chaos around the league, but it would be a great deal for both clubs in the short term, I think. But long term, it might hurt the Rangers more, given the age difference. But let me know what your thoughts are on all of today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time.